3 weeks had passed since the Valkyrie landed. The first harvest came in, and it was good. Not perfect, but good enough. Valkyrie farmers learned quickly, their strong bodies adapting to the physical labor. What they lacked in knowledge, they made up for in determination. Deho found himself teaching more than just farming. He taught them about seasons and weather patterns. He taught them how to repair equipment with limited resources. He taught them patience because crops could not be rushed. But more than that, he taught by example. The Valkyrie watched how he treated his children with gentleness, how he shared his food even when his own portions were small, how he worked until his hands bled, then wrapped them and kept working. Kyla watched all of this. She had set up a command post near the farming zone, coordinating the settlement of her people. 50,000 refugees needed housing, medical care, and organization. It was overwhelming work, but she had managed it with military efficiency. Yet she found herself returning to Deho's farm more often than necessary. She told herself it was to monitor the agricultural progress. But truthfully, she came because the human confused her. Valkyrie culture was built on strength and hierarchy. The strong commanded, the weak obeyed. But Deho was weak by Valkyrie standards, and yet people followed him willingly. Even Valkyrie farmers sought his advice over their own supervisors. One afternoon, Kayla found Hana and Rena playing together in the field. The two children, human and Valkyrie, were building something with sticks and stones. Rena was teaching Hana words in the Valkyrie language, and Hana was teaching Rena a human children's song. "My daughter has not smiled like that since before the war," came a voice beside Kyla. It was Shell, Rena's mother. She had survived the conflict, but barely. Her mate had died protecting their escape ship. "The human child is kind," Kayla observed. "The human child learned from her father," Shell said. "And my daughter is learning the same." She paused. "Commander, I must tell you something. The other day, Rena fell and hurt her knee. She was crying. Deho picked her up, cleaned her wound, and bandaged it. He treated her exactly as he treats his own children. He has compassion," Kayla said. "This is not unusual in some species." "It is unusual in conquerors," Shell said quietly. "And we were conquerors once, were we not? Before we became refugees." The word struck Kayla hard. Yes, the Valkyrie had been conquerors. They had taken worlds, subjugated populations, built an empire on the principle that might made right. And where had it led them? To this, running with nothing, begging for scraps of land from a colony that barely had enough for itself. That evening, Kayla walked through the settlement. Valkyrie families were settling into temporary shelters. The structures were crude but functional. Children played between the buildings, their laughter strange and precious. How long had it been since she heard Valkyrie children laugh? She came upon a group of young males arguing. As she approached, she recognized Vex among them. Her tactical officer was speaking to several other military personnel. "We grow soft," Vex was saying. "We take orders from a commander who negotiates with prey species. We work as farmers when we should be warriors." "Vex," Kayla said sharply, stepping into the group. A word. Alone. They walked away from the others. Vex's stance was stiff, his expression hard. "You question my leadership?" Kayla asked. "I question our path," Vex said. "Commander, we have enough forces to take this colony. The humans have minimal defenses. We could seize control, force them to provide for us, and then what?" Kayla demanded. "The Human Federation sends warships. We fight them with our damaged vessels and depleted forces. We die, and our civilians die with us. At least we die as Valkyrie," Vex said. "As warriors. Not as servants to a species weaker than us." Kayla stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous level. "You think we are servants? Look around you. We are learning to survive without conquest. The humans teach us not because we force them, but because they choose to. That is not weakness. That is a strength we never possessed." "You sound like them now," Vex said with disgust. "You have forgotten what we are." "I have remembered what we should be," Kayla said. Dismissed. Vex left, but his anger lingered in the air like smoke. Kayla knew he was not the only one who felt this way. Old attitudes died hard, especially among warriors. She walked to Deho's barn where she knew he would be. The human worked late every night, maintaining equipment, planning the next planting cycle, calculating yields. He drove himself relentlessly. She found him sitting on the floor of the barn, his back against a stack of grain sacks. He did not notice her at first. His shoulders were shaking. Kayla almost left. Crying was private among the Velkari, a shameful display of vulnerability. But something made her stay. "Deho," she said softly. He looked up, quickly wiping his eyes, but it was too late. She had seen the tears, the raw grief on his face. "I am sorry," he said quickly. "I was just resting. I will get back to work." "Stop," Kayla said. She sat down across from him, the barn floor creaking under her weight. "What troubles you?" Deho was quiet for a long moment. Then the words came pouring out like water from a broken dam. "I see her everywhere," he said. "My wife, Sumi. Every sunset I remember watching them with her. Every morning I wake up and reach for her before I remember she is gone. I work myself until I cannot think because thinking hurts too much." He covered his face with his hands. She was strong, brave. She would know what to do. She would not be afraid like I am. I try to be strong for Hana and Minho, but I am so tired. I am so scared. What if I am doing everything wrong? What if I fail her? What if I fail them? The words came out broken and painful, each one a piece of his soul laid bare. Kayla sat frozen, watching this small human fall apart in front of her. In Velkari culture, this would be shameful. This vulnerability, this admission of fear. But Kayla did not feel disgust. She felt something else entirely. Recognition. "My mate died in the war," Kayla heard herself saying. "His name was Theron. He was a pilot. During the evacuation, he flew cover for the civilian transports. His ship was hit. I watched him fall from the sky like a burning star." She had never spoken these words aloud. Not to her officers, not to her soldiers. Velkari commanders did not share pain. "I do not see him in sunsets," Kayla continued. "I see him in the stars. Every night I look up and wonder if I made the right choice. Should I have ordered him to retreat? Should I have flown beside him? Could I have saved him?" "Do you have children?" Deho asked quietly. "No, we were going to, after the war ended." But war never ended. They sat in silence. Two parents who had loved and lost. Two leaders who carried impossible burdens. Two people who were too tired to pretend to be strong anymore. "Your pain awoke my soul," Kayla said finally. The words came in Velkari first, then she translated them. "When you offered yourself as a servant, when you begged me to protect your children, I felt something I thought I had lost. You were terrified, completely at my mercy, and yet you chose compassion. You saw Velkari children starving and you could not turn away." She looked at Deho directly. "My people conquered worlds. We took what we wanted. We believed mercy was weakness. But look where that brought us. We are refugees with nothing." She gestured around the barn. "You have so little and yet you share it. You have every reason to hate us and yet you teach us. You show us a different way to be strong." Deho wiped his eyes again. "I do not feel strong." "Neither do I," Kayla admitted. "But perhaps that is exactly when we are strongest. When we choose to care even when we are breaking." Minho's small voice called out from the house. "Papa?" Deho stood up quickly, his moment of vulnerability passing. "I need to check on him. He has nightmares sometimes." "I know," Kayla said. "Rena does too. She cries for her father." Deho paused at the barn door. "Rena is welcome to stay with us as long as she needs. She is safe here." After he left, Kayla sat alone in the barn. She thought about Vex's words, about Velkari pride and warrior culture, about conquest and strength. Then she thought about a small human man who cried in his barn but woke up every morning to teach aliens how to grow food, who took in orphaned children that were not even his species, who broke down in private but smiled for his children. That was real strength. The kind of strength her people had never understood. The kind of strength that might save them all. The message came from Earth Federation 40 days after the Velkari landing. Governor Biom announced it on every channel, his face even more worried than usual. "The Federation has responded to our situation," he said, reading from a prepared statement. "A military expedition under Admiral Tae Sung is en route to New Hadong. They will arrive in approximately 60 days to assess the Velkari presence and ensure colonial security. All citizens are to cooperate fully with Federation forces upon their arrival." Deho watched the announcement with growing dread. He was in his kitchen, preparing breakfast for 3 children now. Hana and Minho sat at the table with Rena, who had been staying with them for the past 2 weeks. Shell worked long hours helping organize the Velkari settlement, and Rena was happier here with other children. "What does it mean, Papa?" Hana asked. She was smart enough to understand that military expeditions were not good news. It means important people are coming to visit, Deho said carefully. We need to show them that everyone here is getting along. But he knew it was more complicated than that. Federation military expeditions did not come to planets where everything was fine. They came to planets where there were problems that needed solving. And to Earth Federation, 50,000 armed Velkari refugees probably looked like a very big problem. At the Velkari command post, Kayla was having similar thoughts. Her senior officers gathered around the tactical display, studying the information they had on Admiral Taesung. He is a hardliner, reported Torin, the elderly engineer who served as intelligence officer. He believes in human expansion and military strength. He has overseen 3 colony consolidations, all of which resulted in forced relocations and military governance. Translation, Vex said bluntly. He will demand we leave or he will try to force us to leave. We cannot leave, Shell said. She had been invited to these meetings recently, representing the civilian refugees. Our ships barely made it here. Most are not space-worthy anymore. We used the last of our fuel just to land. Then we fight, Vex said as if it were simple. With what? Kayla demanded. We have 5 barely functional warships and maybe 1,000 combat-ready soldiers. Earth Federation will send a fleet. We would last hours at best. Better to die fighting than to surrender, Vex argued. Several other officers nodded in agreement. Kyla slammed her hand on the table. We did not come here to die. We came here to live. Our civilians came here to have a future. I will not throw away 50,000 lives because of pride. Then what do you suggest? Vex challenged. Bow down to humans? Become their servants officially? Before Kayla could answer, an alarm sounded. One of the perimeter guards was calling in urgently. Commander, we have a situation at the Deho farm. Human colonial police are attempting to enter the property. Kayla was moving before she finished thinking. She grabbed her armor and weapons, calling for a security team to follow her. She arrived at Deho's farm to find 3 colonial police vehicles parked outside. 6 officers stood at the property line, facing off against 2 Velkari guards who were blocking their path. Deho stood on his porch, holding Minho in his arms. Hana clung to his leg. Rena stood behind them, her large eyes wide with fear. The lead police officer, a man named Hyun, held up an official-looking document. This is a legal relocation order. The farming zones are being consolidated for security reasons. All families with children are being moved to the central colony settlement. You have 1 hour to pack essential belongings. No, Deho said firmly, though his voice shook. This is my land, my home. I am not leaving. This is not a request, Hyun said. Governor's orders. The Velkari presence has made the outer zones unsafe. Children especially need to be relocated to secure areas. I am perfectly safe, Deho said. The Velkari protect us. They have done us no harm. The Velkari are armed aliens, Hyun said, his patience clearly wearing thin. They are not to be trusted with human children. Now you can come willingly, or we will take the children into protective custody and charge you with child endangerment. Kayla stepped forward. She was in full armor, and her presence made the police officers step back instinctively. This farm is under Velkari protection, Kayla said, her voice cold and hard. You will not take this family anywhere. Hyun's hand moved toward his weapon. This is human law on a human colony. You have no authority here, alien. I have 50,000 reasons to disagree, Kayla said, and several of them are armed and monitoring the situation right now. It was a standoff. The police officers were outmatched and they knew it. But Hyun was not backing down. Governor Biom will hear about this, he said. The Federation will hear about this. You are making a mistake. I am protecting innocents, Kayla said. That is never a mistake. The police eventually left, but everyone knew this was not over. Deho collapsed on his porch steps after they were gone, shaking with adrenaline and fear. Thank you, he said to Kayla. They were going to take my children. I gave you my word, Kayla said. I will not break it. But as she said it, she wondered how long she could keep that promise. The Federation was coming. They would have laws, regulations, and military force on their side. What did she have? Damaged ships and desperate refugees. That night, Deho could not sleep. He walked through the colony settlement, something he did sometimes when his mind was too restless. Most humans avoided the Velkari areas, but Deho had become a familiar sight. Velkari guards nodded to him as he passed. He found himself at the small market area that had formed. Human and Velkari traders had started exchanging goods, food for tools, repairs for supplies. It was unofficial and technically against Governor Biom's regulations, but it happened anyway. He saw Sang-woo there, the old vegetable farmer, Mi-young, the widow with livestock, Jin and Yuna, the young couple with fruit trees. Other farmers he had recruited into the protection arrangement. They were all trading with Velkari, building relationships, creating connections. "We need to do more," Daeho said to them, an idea forming. "The Federation is coming. They will see us as victims forced to work with aliens. We need to show them the truth. That we choose this. That this works." "How?" Sang-woo asked. "Governor Biom will never support us." "Then we go around him," Daeho said. "We document everything. We make recordings. We show the Federation exactly what is happening here. Not soldiers and refugees, but people working together." Over the next week, they did exactly that. They recorded Velkari and humans farming side by side. They recorded children playing together. They recorded shared meals, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. They built a story of integration, not invasion. Daeho even convinced Kayla to let him record an interview with her, explaining the Velkari perspective. She was stiff and uncomfortable on camera, but her honesty came through. "We did not come here to conquer," she said. "We came here because we had nowhere else to go. The humans of New Hadong could have destroyed us. We were weak, vulnerable, desperate. Instead, they taught us to farm. They shared their knowledge. They treated our children with kindness." She paused. "We were warriors once. We thought strength meant domination. The humans showed us that true strength means compassion, even toward strangers. But not everyone agreed with this approach." Vex and several other military officers grew increasingly agitated. "You make us look weak," Vex confronted Kayla after seeing the recordings. "You bow to humans, thank them for scraps. This is not the Velkari way." "The Velkari way led to our homeworld burning," Kayla shot back. "Perhaps we need a new way." Vex's expression darkened. "You are not the commander I followed into battle. That commander was strong, decisive. You have become soft, corrupted by human sentiment." "I have become wise," Kayla said. "There is a difference." That night, Kayla received intelligence that made her blood run cold. Torin had intercepted communications. Vex was meeting with other hardline officers. They were planning something. The words tactical necessity and securing resources appeared in the encrypted messages. A coup. Or worse, an attack on the human colony to seize control before the Federation arrived. Kayla called for Daeho urgently. He arrived at her command post, still in his work clothes, smelling of soil and sweat. "We have a problem," Kayla said. "Some of my officers are planning to betray our agreement. They want to take the colony by force." Daeho went pale. "Can you stop them?" "I do not know," Kayla admitted. "They are skilled warriors. If they move during the night, they could do significant damage before I could mobilize loyal forces." "Then we need to act first," Daeho said. "Where are they meeting?" "Old storage facility near the landing zone." "Why?" "Because I am going to talk to them," Daeho said. "That is suicide," Kayla said flatly. "They will kill you." "Maybe," Daeho said. "But I have to try. If fighting starts, everyone loses. The humans, the Velkari, my children, Reyna, all the families who are finally starting to feel safe." He looked at Kayla with fierce determination. "I did not survive losing my wife and build a new life just to watch it destroyed by fear and pride." Kayla stared at this small, scared, impossibly brave human. Then she made her decision. "You will not go alone," she said. "We do this together." Kayla had fought in 43 battles before her homeworld fell. She had killed enemies with her bare hands. She had commanded troops through impossible situations. She had watched cities burn and refugees scatter like leaves in a storm, but she had never seen anything like the human farmer standing in front of her. He was small, weak. His hands were rough with calluses, his face lined with exhaustion and grief. He was shaking with fear so intense she could smell it through her helmet sensors, and yet he had walked toward her warriors instead of running away. He had offered himself as a servant to protect his offspring. In Velkari culture, such an offer would be shameful. A warrior would rather die than submit to service. Weakness was something to be eliminated, not displayed, but Kayla had learned new things about weakness in the past year. She had learned it when her people chose to flee their homeworld instead of dying in a useless last stand. She had learned it when she watched soldiers cry as they left their dead behind. She had learned it when she held a child who asked for her dead mother. Show me your land, Kayla said to the human. Show me how you grow food. The man, Deho, took her through his fields. His farm was small by Velkari standards, but the crops were healthy and well-maintained. He explained his irrigation system, his crop rotation, his soil enrichment methods. He spoke simply, using his hands to gesture when words failed him. Kayla's tactical officer, a male named Vex, walked beside her. He was one of the few surviving members of her elite guard. Through their private communication channel, he spoke harshly. Commander, we should simply take this land. Why negotiate with one weak human? Kayla did not answer immediately. She watched Deho bend down to examine a plant, his movements careful and practiced. He knew this land the way a warrior knew weapons. Because 50,000 Velkari need to learn how to do what he does, Kayla finally said. And learning requires teachers. Would you rather force him to teach us while hating us, or have him teach us willingly? He offers service out of fear, not loyalty, Vex argued. All service begins with fear, Kayla said. Loyalty comes later, if it comes at all. They returned to Deho's small house. His children were inside, watching from the windows. Kayla could see their small faces, eyes wide with fear. The daughter was trying to be brave, standing in front of her younger brother protectively, just like young Velkari children during the evacuation. The older ones always tried to protect the younger ones. Your mate? Kayla asked Deho. Where is she? Pain crossed the human's face. Dead, he said quietly. 2 years ago, a plague. Kayla understood that kind of pain. She had lost her own mate in the war. Shot down during a retreat mission, his ship exploding in the atmosphere while she watched from the ground. My people will begin arriving tomorrow, Kayla said. I will bring farmers first. Civilians who worked agricultural facilities on our homeworld. You will teach them. In exchange, I will place a security detail around your farm. Any human authorities who try to remove you or your offspring will have to go through Velkari warriors. Deho nodded slowly. How many people are we talking about? 200 farmers to start. We will expand from there. 200? Deho looked shocked. I cannot teach 200 people at once. You will teach 20, Kayla said. They will teach others. This is how we will survive. She turned to leave, but Deho called out to her. Wait, the other human farmers. My neighbors. They will need protection too. The governor is already talking about forced relocations. If I am teaching your people to farm, I will need help. Let me bring other humans into this. Kayla considered this. Her military advisors would call it a security risk. But her instincts, the same instincts that had kept her alive through 43 battles, told her this human was offering something valuable. You may contact other farmers, she said. But if any betray us, you will share their punishment. I understand, Deho said. Over the next week, something strange began to happen. Deho contacted 5 other farming families in the area. All of them were facing the same problem. Evacuation orders they could not afford to follow. Farms they could not afford to abandon. One by one, they came to meet with Kayla. There was an older man named Sangwoo who grew vegetables. A widow named Mi Young who raised livestock. A young couple, Jin and Yuna, who specialized in fruit trees. Each of them made the same desperate bargain that Deho had made, work in exchange for protection. The Velkari refugees began arriving in waves. Most were thin and exhausted, wearing clothes that were little more than rags. Many were injured. Kayla watched them stumble off the transport ships and felt her hearts break all over again. These were not warriors. These were shopkeepers and teachers, engineers and artists, parents and children. They had survived the war only to face starvation on an alien world. Deho met the first group of Velkari farmers in his field. 20 of them, ranging from young adults to elderly, they towered over him, but they listened quietly as he explained the basics of planting grain. The soil here is different from what you know, he said through a translator device that Kayla had provided. But the principles are the same. Seeds need water, soil, and sun. We give them these things and they give us food. It is simple work, but it is hard work. One of the Velkari, a female named Rena's mother Shell, raised her hand. How long before we can harvest? 3 weeks for this crop, Deho said. But we will plant more. Always planting, always harvesting. That is how you keep food coming. Shell looked at the field, then back at Deho. You trust us with this knowledge? We are strangers to your world. Deho was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made Kayla, who was watching from a distance, truly understand the human for the first time. My wife used to say that hungry people are all the same, he said. Velkari, human, whatever. A parent trying to feed a child does not look like a stranger. They look like family. The Velkari farmers stood very still, processing this. Then slowly they began to kneel down in the soil, copying what Deho showed them. That evening, Kayla found Deho sitting on the steps of his house. His children were asleep inside. He was staring at the sunset, his face tired but calmer than it had been a week ago. "You did well today," Kayla said, sitting beside him. The steps creaked under her weight. She was easily twice his mass, and the wooden structure was not built for Velkari. "They learn fast," Deho said. "Your people. They are good workers." "They are desperate," Kayla said honestly. "Desperation makes people learn quickly." "So does hope," Deho said. He glanced at her. "They are starting to hope." "I can see it." Kayla was silent. Then she asked the question that had been bothering her since their first meeting. "Why did you make your offer?" "You could have hidden, waited to see what we would do." Deho looked at his hands. They were dirty from the field work, the nails cracked and worn. "I saw children in your group," he said quietly. "Little ones. They looked hungry, scared." He paused. "They looked like my children did when my wife died. When I did not know how I would feed them, how I would keep them safe." He looked up at Kayla. "I cannot watch children starve. Not even alien children. I am not that strong." Kayla felt something shift inside her chest. Something she thought had died with her home world. "That is not weakness," she said softly. "That is exactly the opposite." Deho smiled sadly. "My wife would have said the same thing." "I just wish I could believe it." They sat together as the sun finished setting. Above them, the Velkari ships orbited in the darkening sky. Around them in the fields, two species that should have been enemies were learning to work side by side. And in the house behind them, 3 children slept peacefully. 2 human and 1 Velkari child named Rena, who had been orphaned in the war, now sleeping in a spare room that Deho had offered when he saw her alone and crying. The bargain had been made. Now came the hard part, keeping it. The sun was setting over the fields of New Hadong when Deho saw the lights in the sky. He was carrying his daughter Hana on his shoulders, while little Minho held his hand. They had spent the whole day working in the fields, and all 3 of them were tired and covered in dust. "Papa, what are those lights?" Hana asked, pointing at the sky with her small finger. Deho stopped walking. His heart began to beat faster. The lights were not stars. They were too big, too bright, and they were moving. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They hung in the sky like burning flowers, growing larger with each passing moment. "Go inside the house," Deho said quietly. "Right now." Hana heard the fear in her father's voice. She climbed down from his shoulders without asking questions. Minho started to cry, sensing something was wrong. Deho picked up his son and ran toward their small farmhouse, pulling Hana along with his free hand. Inside, he turned on the old communication screen. Every channel showed the same thing: panic, confusion, fear. The news reporters were all talking at once, their voices high and shaking. Unidentified vessels in orbit. Dozens of massive ships. No response to our signals. Colonial Defense Forces on high alert. All citizens advised to remain calm. But nobody was calm. Deho could see it in the reporters' eyes. This was not a drill. This was not a merchant fleet. These were warships. He looked at his children. Hana was 7 years old, smart and brave like her mother had been. Minho was only 4, still so small and fragile. Deho had promised Sumi before she died that he would keep them safe. He had promised. The screen changed. Now it showed the governor of New Hadong, a thin man named Biom who always looked worried. Today he looked terrified. "Citizens of New Hadong," Governor Biom said, his voice cracking. "We have been contacted by the fleet in orbit. They call themselves the Velkari. They are requesting emergency landing rights. They claim to be refugees fleeing from a war. However, we cannot verify their intentions. The Colonial Defense Council has voted to deny their request. All orbital stations are being evacuated. All citizens with access to transport ships are advised to evacuate immediately." Deho felt his stomach drop. Evacuate. He looked around his small house. Everything he owned was here. His wife's pictures on the wall. The toys his children played with. The fields outside that he had worked for 5 years to make productive. He checked his account balance on the screen. 300 credits. An evacuation transport for one person cost 800 credits. For 3 people, he would need more than 2,000 credits. He did not have 2,000 credits. He barely had enough to feed his children until the next harvest. The screen showed images from the orbital cameras now. The Valkyrie ships were enormous, dark and angular, covered in scorch marks and damage. Some of them were barely holding together. Debris floated around them. These were not the ships of conquerors. These were the ships of people running from something terrible. Papa? Hana touched his arm. Are we going to be okay? Daeho looked at his daughter's eyes. They were his wife's eyes, dark and trusting. He knelt down and hugged both his children. Yes, he lied. We will be okay. That night, Daeho could not sleep. He stood by the window watching the sky. The Valkyrie ships were landing anyway. Governor Biom had said no, but what could the governor do? New Hadong had 12 defense fighters and maybe 200 soldiers. The Valkyrie had warships. Huge streaks of fire crossed the sky as the alien ships entered the atmosphere. They landed far from the main colony, in the empty lands beyond the farming zones. But far on New Hadong was not very far. Daeho's farm was on the edge of the farming zone. He was in the exclusion area that Governor Biom had declared. The area where humans were not supposed to go anymore. The next morning, Daeho walked through his fields looking at the crops. The grain was almost ready for harvest. Another 3 weeks and he would have enough to sell. Enough to feed his children through the winter, enough to pay his debts. But who would buy grain when aliens were landing? Who would care about one farmer's crops when the world was ending? He heard the sound of engines. Not human engines. These were deeper, smoother, like the purr of some great predator. Daeho turned and saw them. 3 figures walking through his fields. They were tall, much taller than any human. They wore armor that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight, dark purple and black. Their faces were angular and sharp, with large eyes that caught the light. The one in front was taller than the others and carried herself like a soldier. Daeho's first instinct was to run, to grab his children and hide. But where could he run? This was his land, his home, the only thing he had left. He walked toward them instead, his hands raised to show he had no weapons. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break his ribs. The tall one stopped and looked at him. She had scars on her face and metal implants along her jaw. Her eyes were a strange golden color, and they studied him the way a scientist might study an insect. Human, she said. Her voice was deep and had an electronic quality to it, like she was speaking through a translator. This land, it produces food? Daeho's mouth was dry. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. He swallowed and tried again. Yes, he managed to say. This is my farm. I grow grain here. The tall Valkyrie looked across his fields. The other 2 were examining the soil, taking samples with strange devices. We need food, she said simply. We have 50,000 people. Most are civilians, children, elderly. Our supplies are gone. Our ships are damaged. We cannot leave. Daeho stared at her. She was not asking permission. She was simply stating facts. This was a warrior telling him what would happen. But then he looked closer. Her armor was damaged, burned in places. One of her arms had visible wounds under the plates. And in her golden eyes, just for a moment, he saw something he recognized. Desperation. She was not a conqueror surveying new territory. She was a mother looking at a field that might feed her children. You have offspring? The Valkyrie asked, pointing toward his house. Daeho turned. Hana was peeking out from behind the door, watching them. When she saw her father looking, she ducked back inside, but not before the Valkyrie saw her. Yes, Daeho said. 2 children. A daughter and a son. The Valkyrie nodded slowly. I understand, she said. There was something in her voice now, something softer. We will not harm them. The words came out of Daeho before he could think about them, before he could stop himself, before fear could silence him. I will work as a servant if you protect us. The Valkyrie stared at him. Her golden eyes widened. The other 2 Valkyrie stopped what they were doing and turned to look. What did you say? She asked. Daeho's legs were shaking, but he kept talking. You need food. I can teach you how to grow it. I will give you my land. I will work for you. I will do whatever you need. Just promise me you will protect my children. Promise me the human authorities will not take them away when they evacuate the farmers. The Valkyrie commander stood very still for a long moment. Then she removed her helmet. Her face was angular and alien, but her expression was something Daeho understood perfectly. It was the face of someone who had never expected mercy from strangers. "I am called Kayla," she said, "and I accept your offer." The old storage facility was dark and cold. Deho could see his breath in the air as he walked beside Kayla toward the building. Behind them, a small group of Kayla's loyal guards followed quietly. They were insurance in case things went badly. Inside, Vex and 12 other Velkari officers stood around a holographic tactical display. They were studying the layout of the main colony settlement, marking defensive positions and weak points. This was not a meeting. This was mission planning. Vex saw Kayla and Deho enter and his eyes narrowed. "Commander, and the human pet. How convenient. You have saved us the trouble of finding you." "Stand down, Vex," Kayla ordered. "Whatever you are planning, it ends now." "No," Vex said simply. He gestured to the other officers. They spread out, surrounding Kayla and Deho. "It begins now. The Federation fleet arrives in 30 days. We will not wait to be imprisoned or killed. We will take this colony, fortify it, and negotiate from a position of strength." "You will doom us all," Kayla said. "The Federation will destroy us. You know this." "Then we die as warriors," Vex said, "not as farmers begging for scraps." Deho stepped forward, his heart pounding. He was terrified, but he spoke anyway. "Is that what you think we are doing?" he asked, "begging for scraps?" Vex looked down at the small human with contempt. "You are weak. You work in dirt. You serve us because you have no choice." "I work in dirt because that is how you create life," Deho said. His voice was shaking, but he kept talking. "I serve because I choose to help people who need help. And you are wrong about having no choice. I have many choices. I could have hidden. I could have run. I could have turned you away and let your people starve." "You would have been destroyed," Vex said. "Maybe," Deho agreed. "But I did not know that. When I walked up to Kayla that first day, I thought I might die. I was more afraid than I have ever been in my life. But I saw children in your group who were hungry, and I could not turn away. Not because I am weak, but because I am human." He looked around at all the Velkari officers. "You think strength means taking what you want, killing your enemies, conquering others. But look where that brought you. Your homeworld is gone. Your empire is destroyed. You ran here with nothing and you survived because you learned a different kind of strength." "What strength?" Vex demanded. "The strength to farm? To bow down? The strength to change," Deho said. "To learn. To work with people who are different from you. To choose life over death, hope over pride." One of the other officers, a female named Cora, spoke up. "The human has a point. Commander Kayla's strategy has kept us alive. Our civilians are fed. Our children are safe." "Safe?" Vex laughed bitterly. "For how long? Until the Federation comes and takes it all away. We should strike first." "And kill how many innocents?" Kayla demanded. "Human civilians who have done nothing to harm us? Children? The very people who taught us to survive here?" "Collateral damage," Vex said coldly. "This is war." "No," Kayla said firmly. "This is fear. You're afraid, Vex, afraid of being weak, afraid of losing. So you want to fight even if fighting means certain death." "I am not afraid," Vex snarled. "Yes, you are," Deho said quietly, "and that is okay. I am afraid too. Every day. I am afraid I am not a good father. I am afraid I will lose my children the way I lost my wife. I am afraid everything I build will fall apart. But I cannot let fear make me hurt innocent people." He took a breath. "If you attack the colony, you will have to go through my farm. You will have to walk past my children. Past Rena, the little girl who has been sleeping in my house because she has nightmares about the war. Can you do that? Can you look at them and choose violence?" Something in Vex's expression flickered. For just a moment, the hard warrior facade cracked, but before anyone could respond, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Kayla's communication device came alive with urgent voices. "Commander, multiple ships detected entering orbit. It is the Federation fleet. They arrived early." Kayla's eyes widened. 30 days early? That is impossible. "They must have been close already," Torin's voice came through. "They are demanding we respond immediately." The tactical situation had just changed completely. Vex and his officers looked at each other, then at Kayla. The question hung in the air. What now? Kayla made a decision. Everyone to defensive positions, but no weapons firing unless fired upon. "Understood? We do not start this fight." She looked at Vex. "You want to be a warrior? Then prove you can be a smart one. Help me protect our people without destroying everything we have built. Vex stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. For now. They rushed to the command center. The main screen showed the Federation fleet in orbit. 15 warships, heavily armed. On the communication channel, a stern face appeared. Admiral Tae-sung, exactly as intimidating as his reputation suggested. Velkari forces, this is Admiral Tae-sung of the Earth Federation. You are in violation of colonial space. Power down your weapons and prepare for inspection. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Kayla straightened. Admiral, this is Commander Kayla of the Velkari refugee fleet. We have no hostile intent. We seek only asylum. That is not your decision to make, Tae-sung said coldly. You have occupied human territory without authorization. You have 50,000 armed aliens on a civilian colony. This situation ends now. You have 1 hour to surrender command of your forces and submit to Federation authority. Daeho, watching from the side, felt his stomach sink. This was it. This was the end of everything they had built. But then he had an idea. A desperate, probably stupid idea. Let me talk to him, Daeho said to Kayla. What? Kayla looked at him like he was insane. I am a colonist, a human. Let me show him what is really happening here. Daeho was already moving toward the communication console. We have all those recordings. Everything we documented. Let me broadcast it. Kayla hesitated, then nodded. Do it. Daeho took over the communication channel. His hands were shaking as he patched in the recordings they had made. Admiral Tae-sung, my name is Daeho. I am a farmer here on New Hadong. Before you make any decisions, please watch this. He played the recordings. Humans and Velkari working together. Children laughing. Shared meals. The interviews. Kayla's words about learning compassion. The testimonies from Sang-woo, Mi-young, Jin, Yuna, and others. A complete picture of integration, cooperation, and mutual survival. This is what is really happening here, Daeho said. Not an invasion. Not an occupation. A community. We chose this. We are choosing this every day. Admiral Tae-sung watched silently. When the recordings ended, his expression had not changed. Compelling propaganda, he said, but it does not change the facts. The Velkari are armed. They have military capabilities. They pose a potential threat. So do humans, Daeho said. But we choose not to be threats to each other. Is that not the point of civilization? Before the Admiral could respond, another voice came over the communication channel. Governor Beum appeared on a secondary screen. Admiral, I must protest this colonist speaking on behalf of New Hadong. The colonial government has not authorized any integration with Velkari forces. These farmers have violated numerous regulations. With respect, Governor, Daeho said, your regulations were killing us. Your evacuation orders would have separated families. Your relocation programs would have destroyed our farms. We made the choice to survive. You made the choice to collaborate with aliens, Beum said angrily. I made the choice to help children who were starving, Daeho said. His voice grew stronger. Human children. Velkari children. They all look the same when they are hungry. They all cry the same when they are afraid. He looked directly into the camera. Admiral, I lost my wife 2 years ago. Raising my children alone has been the hardest thing I have ever done. When the Velkari came, I was terrified. But I saw something in Commander Kayla. I saw desperation. The same desperation I felt when I did not know how to feed my children. The same love for her people that I feel for mine. Daeho's voice cracked with emotion. I made a deal. I offered service in exchange for protection. But it became more than that. It became partnership, friendship, family. My daughter plays with Velkari children. A Velkari orphan sleeps in my house. We celebrate harvests together. We share our food, our knowledge, our lives. He pointed at the screen showing the Velkari settlement. Those are not soldiers planning conquest. Those are refugees trying to survive. And yes, some of them were warriors. They made mistakes. They conquered others and believed might made right. But they learned. They changed. They became better. Tears were running down Daeho's face now. Is that not what we all hope to do? To learn from our mistakes? To become better than we were. If we destroy them now after they have chosen peace, after they have worked so hard to integrate, what does that make us? The communication channel was silent. Admiral Tae-sung studied Daeho for a long moment. Then something happened that no one expected. Tae-sung's expression softened slightly. Stand by, he said. I need to consult with my command staff. The screen went dark. Everyone in the Velkari command center stood frozen, afraid to hope. Deho collapsed into a chair, his entire body shaking. Kayla put a hand on his shoulder and he realized it was trembling too. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for fighting for us with words instead of weapons." "I just told the truth," Deho said.